What's up guys, Jesse Summers here and welcome back to my channel. I just wanted to say that so I could sound like a YouTuber. I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube or if you are watching this on Instagram or Facebook, wherever you are watching. Thank you so much. Today I wanted to talk about a so important topic, and that is the 5 checks you are going to write during a real estate transaction. This is the money, y'all, that you want to have on hand for when you're buying a home, okay? This is the money that you want to have on hand when you're buying a home. So let's dive right into it. If you have not seen my transaction timeline video, I've got it linked down below. Please watch that first, just so that I'm not being redundant in this video and can make it as succinct as I would like to. Please check out that video first, the transaction timeline video. Okay, again, it's linked down below. Watch that before you get into this. But assuming you have watched that video, let's get into it. I am going to start at the very end, the last check you are going to write, and then go back to the first, and then go in order, okay? So I hope that makes sense, and it will make more sense in just a moment. So here we go. You're gonna write 5 checks during the course of a real estate transaction, and the fifth check that you're going to write is for your closing costs. This is the last check you are going to write for a real estate transaction, and it is for your closing cost. Your closing costs are typically about 3% of your overall purchase price. This is a rough estimate, okay? This is not exact science or numbers. I guess I should say exact math, right? But it is roughly 3% of your closing cost. It is roughly 3% of your purchase price, okay? And I started out with that number for a reason, and so you will see why in just a moment. So let's use, for our example, a $200,000 purchase price for a home. You are under contract for $200,000, then your 3% for your closing costs will be roughly $6,000, okay? So the fifth check you're gonna write is for your closing costs, which at the current moment total to $6,000. Going back to the beginning, if you guys will remember that 3-week period that we called the due diligence period in the last video, that is the time in which you're going to take to get your inspections done, your appraisal done, and come to an agreement with the seller about the things they are going to repair. But that period of time comes along with what we call the due diligence fee. The due diligence fee compensates the seller for the amount of time they are taking the home off the market while you inspect it, okay? In our market, especially in the Raleigh and the Durham area, in the Greater Triangle area, we are in a very hot and competitive market, right? So if the seller accepts our offer, it is likely that they have rejected other offers. And if you remember in the last video, we talked about that you as the buyer can walk away. The seller cannot walk away, but you as the buyer can walk away. And if you decide to, what is going to happen is that the seller is going to get to keep your due diligence fee, okay? We are compensating them for their time and potentially losing out on clients that would have closed, okay? How much do you want to have set aside? How much do you want to have set aside for your due diligence fee? Now, I typically suggest saving up 1% of the purchase price. So if we're looking at a $200,000 home, then I suggest saving up $2,000 for your due diligence. The reality is you don't typically need that much, but if you have saved up that much, then you are in a much better position to be competitive if we do get caught up in a multiple offer situation. Because these days, so often what determines a winning offer is not just the price, but the due diligence fee. Because the seller wants to see that you as the buyer are committed, that you've got some skin in the game, okay? And so if you decide to walk away, then they get to keep that. And I'm suggesting you save up to, 1%, which would be $2,000 in this case, but more than likely you're gonna use about $1,000 to $1,500 of that, okay? Here's the best news. If you get to closing, meaning you get through the transaction, you do not walk away, then that money goes towards your closing costs. So let's say that we do use $1,500. If you use $1,500 for your due diligence and you actually get to closing, then $1,500 will be subtracted from your closing costs because you've already put it down. So I did go to public school, but I think that math is $4,500. And shout out to anyone that went to public school. There is nothing wrong with it. $4,500 is now all that you owe for your closing cost, all right? Next is the earnest money. So essentially the third check you're gonna write is for earnest money. What is earnest money? Earnest money essentially serves the same purpose as your due diligence fee, but in this case, the seller gets to keep it if you walk away after the due diligence period, that 3-week period of time is over, okay? Which you can do, and the only thing that you would give up is the due diligence fee and the earnest money, but nothing else. And I know that sounds like probably a lot, especially if we're talking thousands of dollars, but it's not that bad compared to them being able to sue you and take everything you got. You know, that's not the case here. For earnest money, I again suggest saving up about 1%, but typically you're putting down less than what you put down for the due diligence. But again, if you've got it saved up, then you are in a much more competitive position. But let's say you put down $1,000 for earnest money. Again, if you get to closing, then the earnest money goes towards your closing cost. And so if you get to closing, and we are now subtracting another $1,000 from that $4,500, and we are down to $3,500. Okay, so that's the good news. Due diligence and earnest money, if you get to closing, go towards your closing costs. And if you're using a program like State Employees First Time Home Buyer Program, then they are going to provide $2,000 towards your closing costs, and you are down to $1,500 that's due for your closing costs. That's a different video for a different time, but if you are a first-time home buyer and have access to State Employees, check out their program. Hit me up, I can give you the details on it, okay? So, we started at the end, but one check is for your closing cost. Another check is for your due diligence fee. The next check is for your earnest money. And then your fourth check is for inspections, okay? Now, you may have multiple inspections done and technically write more than one check. But when it comes to that, I suggest having anywhere between $300 to $600 set aside for inspections. The gentleman that we use for inspections most often charges us about $300, and so that's going to cover your general home inspection. But if you need to get any other specific home inspections done, like an HVAC inspection, then that may run you like another $100 to $150. And you get that a couple of times over and you got $600. So I suggest saving up a little bit more, and keep in mind, I'm always suggesting a little bit more so that you are relieved rather than surprised, right? If you've got a little bit of money left over at the end, then man, why not, right? I don't want you to be struggling to save up every little bit and get nervous as we go throughout the transaction, okay? So remember that I'm typically suggesting a little bit more than you need, but if you've got it, you're in a much better position. And then finally, you are going to write a check for the appraisal. Appraisals are anywhere between $400 to $550. State Employees is doing them currently right around $400, maybe about $390. And I've never seen an appraisal higher than $550. Okay, I feel like they can go higher. I've just not seen them. But you know, if you have about $400 to $550 set aside for an appraisal, you are good. All right, so let's run through those totals really quickly one last time, starting at the very end for your closing cost, next for your due diligence fee, then your earnest money, next are your inspections, and then finally your appraisal. I hope between this video and the transaction timeline video that you have a much better understanding of the real estate process, the process of buying a home. If you've got more specific questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me directly or throw them down in the comments. Others may have the same questions, and I will either respond to you or make a video addressing those things specifically. So again, thanks for watching wherever you are watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button or follow me. And until next time, I love you guys.